Hey, welcome back, guys. So we finally got that long-awaited official trailer for Power Ghost's final season. And it's filled with some new imagery that's offered us some subtle clues into what's going to take place in the first episode and beyond. Before we begin, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and bell notification to immediately receive these videos. Also, big thank you to all of my channel donors. If you'd like to be the next one, drop $1 on that Cash App for us. And lastly, a spoiler alert is now in effect for all things Power. Here we go. The new trailer depicts Tariq and Brayden at war with everyone who they've known to be an ally up to this point. This is based on the major treachery that took place in the finale of last season, where we saw Tariq betrayed by not just his plug, but his surrogate family in the streets, those of which he helped stay afloat during their hardest of times throughout Power Ghost's duration. This includes Diana, Kane, Drew, and even Effie. All of his former comrades in the drug struggle collectively conspired against him and decided his time was up in the process. If it had not been for Obi, Noma's right-hand man, and the assistance of his day one, Brayden, Tariq certainly would have been cooked in that final scene. But alas, we find our series lead in a fight for his life, and he'll have to borrow from every piece of the past, even the pieces that he's been scared to face up until this point, in order to win this pending battle. But let's start with some of the clues contained in the trailer. First off, the soundtrack is very telling, as it's curated by 50 Cent's classic Many Men, or at least an offshoot of it. Now, as everyone who's a fan of hip-hop well knows, that song goes as follows. Many men wish death upon me, blood in my eyes and I can't see. I'm trying to be who I'm destined to be, and niggas want to take my life away. And these stanzas perfectly paint the picture that Tariq is currently trapped in. He is indeed trying to be who he's destined to be. To this point, he hasn't even figured out who that person is, but he knows who he's not. And with every step he's taken up until this point, he also realizes what his motivation is, and that's to keep himself and his family safe from danger, and hopefully bridge the gap between the two once figuring a way out of the game, or at least a way to thrive within it. But under the current circumstances, nothing more is at risk than Tariq's family. As we know, in all wars, there are casualties. This means that Tasha, Yaz, and Big Mama are all in serious danger, so long as Tariq stays within this conflict. The season is also marketed under the like father, like son moniker, a tagline that may foreshadow aspects of the plot. As with Tariq, Ghost was once under fire by everyone who was around him, and attempted to get out of the life once and for all, and not caring about who he had to cross in the process. He was unwavering in his resilience, even if it cost him his friends, his family, and even the fate of his own son. And this is what led to his demise, because Ghost was even willing to put his son in a position where his future would be compromised in the name of his own upheaval. But that was a risk he was willing to take, so long as he put himself in position where his family would never want for nothing again. And on his way to this conclusion, he warned Tariq that he never wanted him in this life, something that Tariq echoes in the trailer, because as his father promised him, this life is going to bring you nothing but misery, son. And now that misery is at his front doorstep in its fullest form, and Tariq has to deal with the consequences of his many missteps, the first of which will be the execution of the only person who could guide him through these steps. But the question remains, if Ghost responded the way he responded with his back against the wall and lost in an effort of futility, how will Tariq's fate play out similarly? His back is now against the wall, which means he'll be forced to make some heavy decisions even from the premiere of the first episode, assuming that there'll be 10 episodes, because it's rumored that there may have been more. But if it's anything like the OG Power's final season, there'll be 10 episodes with a 5-episode epilogue. Hopefully we see something like that in Power Ghost Season 4, where we see a part 1 with 6 to 7 episodes and a part 2 with maybe 7 to 8 episodes. And that would round us out to about 15 in total. Now that's in contrast to the initially believed 20 episodes, part 1 being 10 and part 2 being 10. And who knows, they may just do 10 the entire season and make part 1 5 and make part 2 5. But this will be the worst case scenario in this commentator's opinion. If they do 6 to 7 for part 1 and 6 to 7 for part 2, that would give time to flesh out each and every storyline and bring this 4-year epic home in the proper fashion. With all of that being said, let's break down Tariq's quote about being the apex predator, because he did state that he needs to be at the top of the food chain. Now, there's an interesting thing about this designation. An apex predator is indeed the top of the food chain, but there's a subtlety that we need to pay attention to. Just because an apex predator is the top of the food chain in one environment doesn't mean he's going to be the top of the food chain in another environment. For example, an apex predator of the sea isn't an apex predator on land. He'd likely be a few steps below the apex because the land predator would sit at the top of that food chain, but he wouldn't thrive in the sea. The sea predator would be at the apex of that lane because that's his domain, his territory, his given ecosystem that gives him an advantage. So the question is this: will Tariq indeed be the apex predator depending on his environment, or will he be formless, as the 48 Laws of Power teaches us, in order to be the apex in any given environment, being the legitimate world of business, the street world, and otherwise, in order to maintain the advantage over all his adversaries? This is something we must keep in mind as Tariq goes to fight his many battles, because he has battles not just on one front, but on various ones. And in order for Tariq to win this battle, he'll need to indeed be the apex of all, and not just the apex of a few. Another thing we notice throughout the trailer is the usage of fire. Now, fire has a very important meaning throughout the carnal world and the spiritual world. Fire could mean divine judgment, a visual manifestation of God, purification, transformation, or refinement. And throughout this trailer, we see fire used in various forms, including explosions, the candles within the church ceremony, and other places that lends itself to purification. So what they're telling us early on is that through the usage of fire, or our characters being tried by fire, some of them are going to come out pure gold, and some of them are going to be burnt by their decisions of the past. And I'll leave it to you to decide which is which. What we do know for certain is that the war is fully on, and Tariq seems to be on the head of the most vulnerable Tejadas first, i.e. Drew and Diana. Kane is seemingly more insulated as a closer chess piece to Noma, so his treachery will likely drag on, but not so much for the others. And if this season is indeed 10 episodes, then you should expect some major deaths from the first episode on through. They're not going to cookie cut and waste time. From the very first episode, we're going to see bodies dropping, because there's no more time to play around. The fourth season is the season of matriculation, of graduation, and of evolution. And Tariq is going to have to decide what he wants to be, as Tommy so poignantly asked him in the season 3 finale. It's either the streets or the school, but it's not going to be both. So you need to decide right now what it's going to be. With that being said, let's break down some of the quotes used throughout the trailer. The first one is by Detective Don Carter, who states, "Tariq St. Patrick, son of James St. Patrick, no code, no loyalty. You smell just like him. I know the truth. I know who you are, and I'm going to put you where you belong." This quote begins the trailer and sets the stage for Carter's forthcoming crusade against Tariq. He's described as an obsessed personality following the death of his wife that derailed his career. And the tidbit about realizing that nothing will ever bring her back clues us into just how far the detective is willing to take things in order to catch the proverbial white whale, something that never bodes well for law enforcement in the Powerverse, going all the way back to Greg Knox, and on the more contemporary side, Cooper Sachs. Whenever law enforcement is willing to move beyond the blue wall in order to catch their prey, they usually go down with their prey, or go down as a result of their prey. But winning is rarely something that they ever do once they disregard that badge. Tariq checks in next with a quote of his own, stating that, "I need help. Noma, Effie, the Tejadas, they're all working against me. Whoever Reek is talking to is someone that doesn't realize that things have taken such a treacherous turn. Just who could that person be? Could it be Tasha? Or even Davis, perhaps? Both of which are unaware at this time that Tariq has been double-crossed by the only crew that he's known. If I were a betting man, I guess he's talking to Tasha, as he was one of the last ones he had a conversation with and concocted the very plan to approach Noma, buddy up to her, learn everything she knows, and then eventually take her place. That was one of the final conversations he had with his mother before he was double-crossed. And she's also been his saving grace throughout this entire series. So him expressing that level of vulnerability wouldn't be to someone like a Davis, who's a cold-calculated businessman, albeit one whose own back is against the wall following the self-deletion of his brother. Then, Noma checks in, stating that, quote, "This kid could be my undoing. I want him and everyone he loves killed." Noma likely feels this way due to the threat that Tariq presents and the potential exposing of her underworld status to her unsuspecting daughter, Anya. Remember, Tariq also knows that it was Noma who killed her father, in addition to her insidious occupation. Ironically, this would place him in the OG Kanan seat, as it was Big K that once exposed Ghost to his unsuspecting son, who would grow to resent him for withholding the truth. Such may definitely be the case once Anya learns who her mother truly is. Next up, we get a quote by Davis, who states, "I know why I'm doing this, but why are you?" Davis is seemingly asking Tariq a question that we should all be wondering at this juncture in the series. Just what is the Junior St. Patrick's motivation? Why does he now, or did he ever feel the need to ensnare himself in the hustle game? And to what end does it benefit him now that the war is on like never before? The answer to these and other questions we'll certainly be receiving this season. Tariq is next on the check-in, and he states, "I had everything set up for me. Life, school, my family was always safe. I'm not letting nobody take that from me. I gotta become the apex predator." This statement by Tariq is obviously presented in a chopped form, but it nonetheless describes his primary objective for season 4, and that's to be at the top of the food chain for the first time in his drug dealing career. He must be sharper, deadlier, and more unpredictable than ever before. This is where the ghost twinning will really begin to take hold of him, and he'll need every drop of his father's blood, sweat, and intellect to overcome such harrowing odds. Then, Monet drops a quote stating that, "Everything I did for our family." This is an egregious half-truth in hindsight, as Monet's actions were as self-serving as they were family-oriented. This is especially the case in the murder of Lorenzo. That move wasn't for family, that was for herself. And to the contrary, just may have cost her family and placed her in the critical position that she currently resides in. Tariq then rounds out the trailer with a couple of resounding quotes, the first of which being, "My father tried his hardest to keep me away from this. Now look how I turned out." Ghost did once tell his son that he's trying to save him from a life of misery, as I previously stated. And now that misery has returned tenfold. Tariq echoes these sentiments to Diana in the trailer, but by the end of the quote, he's pointing a gun in her direction. This is most certainly a result of her betrayal of Tariq, and now the bill has come due. In a season where death will be a mainstay, Diana just may be an early name on Death's long list. You'll notice that she's seemingly praying in a ceremonial place, surrounded by candles, likely either warding off coming evils in God's name or begging God's forgiveness in the face of the inevitable. No matter how it goes, she's in the direct line of Tariq's warpath, and may the writers have mercy on her soul once they finally meet again. In the second Tariq quote, and perhaps the most important, he states that, "I gotta use all of him, the good parts of him, the bad parts of him. They gotta get what's coming to them, and I'm not gonna rest until it happens." This is the final and arguably most important quote of the trailer, because Tariq dons his father's signature suit and stands in the last spot we see him on the side of the living prior to his son pulling that trigger. Through the parallels and similarities, it seems Tariq has finally come to embrace his ghosthood, something that he's been struggling with since his father's demise. Those same inclinations are necessary now in his current war campaign, and he'll have to tap into them unapologetically in order to overcome his adversaries. Now that the quotes have been broken down, let's lean into some of the lingering elements of the trailer. We see Kane paying the Westons another visit, and even dropping Trace Weston with the old "you get." This is likely due to the Westons still owing the Tejadas for their investment losses in the Ponzi scheme. We also see Effie and Kane back together, in the aftermath of their last conversation while Effie was still behind bars. Now that she's joined up with Noma, and he's even closer to her as her projected third in command, is Effie really into Kane, or is she getting even closer to him in order to place herself in his position? One thing is for certain, Effie is never to be trusted on any level, so that's something to keep an eye on. Who is Kane shooting at in the getaway car? Could this situation be a kidnapping? And if so, who could it be? Since we just spoke on his relationship with Effie, it could likely be a scenario where she's being taken captive. But maybe it's something else. I guess we'll see. Most notably, Tariq gets his Porsche back. And this is something of great surprise to us all, because last we saw his Porsche, he had to trade it in for his life to none other than 2-Bit. Now we know 2-Bit isn't the type to give anyone something for free. So what kind of deal would Tariq have to have worked out to get it back from 2-Bit? Or would 2-Bit be just another victim in Tariq's warpath? After all, Tariq surely hasn't been sleeping too well since he's been at war, and that could have placed his mind into a more evil place. That's something to keep an eye on as well. Now in the case of Drew, we see his car getting slammed into by a truck. Now I personally think the driver of this truck is Tariq. He'll likely be one of Tariq's earliest victims on the warpath, with Diana, as I previously stated, following not too far behind. Additionally, we see Noma pulling blades on Kane. He's gotten closer to her, which means his proximity to her savage nature has as well. She also declares in the trailer, "My Tariq problem gets solved today," meaning there's consequences for if they're not solved. These will likely be carried out on Kane if he fails her in the effort. Remember, she does have a track record of disciplining those who serve her loyally, yet improperly. She gave Obi a $150 when we last saw her pull the blades out, so Kane's mug can't be safer than his. We see Celine. The fake Tevin Campbell Hotep nigga returns. Tariq is shown roughing him up, likely fishing for Diana's whereabouts. This is also interesting because if Diana feels in danger, she will retreat back to someone who puts her in a comforting state and leave it to an old simp nigga to comfort a dangerous woman. Boy, I tell you. And finally, Monet seems to be distraught, likely identifying one of her fallen children at the morgue. This will be the second loss of a child, and only further drive her to the madness we witnessed in an earlier teaser. But with all that being said, that will do it for this one. What were your thoughts on the official trailer and on the pending war between Tariq and all of his enemies? Be sure to drop me your opinions in the comments below. As always, I thank you for watching today's video. If you liked today's video, go ahead and drop $1 on that Cash App for us, hit the like button, share it with your friends who are Power fans, and subscribe for more content such as this. This is Rudy P. Magic of Rudy P. Magic Beats, and have a blessed one until the next one. Peace, y'all.